of previously. When I got back from Iraq, I didn't wait. We already sensed what was happening. And so while we were eager to receive the committee's analysis, I took action right away. So across the 3rd Armored Corps, there's 90,000 soldiers on any given day, and they're stationed here at Fort Hood, at Fort Bliss in western Texas, at Fort Carson in Colorado, and Fort Riley. We also have some soldiers at Fort Sill in Oklahoma. So we've initiated an enduring plan to rebuild and maintain the trust between the leader and the led, because that's the bedrock of our profession, and it's what the American people expect of their Army. So the initiative that I've directed is called Operation People First, and it's a recognition that at the center of everything we do are our people, and they are our greatest strength. They're our most valuable asset. They're the most important resource we have in fighting and winning our nation's wars. And it recognizes that change is required at every level and every echelon to improve trust. It's going to focus on forming cohesive teams. It's going to prioritize a commitment to place our soldiers, families, and Department of the Army civilians first with capital letters, focused on leaders knowing the needs of their soldiers, leaders taking action to make a positive difference in their soldiers' lives, and holding leaders accountable to achieve those results. So for all of the 3rd Armored Corps, Operation People First is my #1 priority. I got to figure out a way to slow things down a little bit. We're already kind of doing that, and I'll explain that here in a second. The first step was giving leaders back some time. I can't expect a leader to get to know their soldiers better and to get after what we have with our challenges here if I don't give them the time to get to know their soldiers and their families. And so to date, and you can work this out with your math, more than 4 million man-hours have been pulled from things we thought we were going to do to give time back to these small unit leaders and the leaders that we have here at Fort Hood and across the Corps. It's about building teams. It's about attacking the corrosives of sexual harassment and sexual assault, of racism and extremism that is in our ranks. Going forward, I'm gonna reinforce this. This is not a one and done. This is a sustained effort to effect permanent change and to foster trust and cohesion across our force. As I mentioned before, culture and climate starts at the top of any organization, and we can only rebuild this trust by our actions. A little bit of integrity is involved here, a little bit of accountability is involved. We got to take care of people. We got to build cohesive teams, and most of all, we've got to live the Army values. Last, I'll talk to you a little bit about what does it all mean to create a lasting and positive change, and that's across Fort Hood, but it's really across the entire 3rd Armored Corps. I'm going to take the findings and recommendations of the committee. There were 9 findings and 70 recommendations with some sub-recommendations contained within there. I'm going to move out on those that I can within my authorities and within the scope of what I'm allowed to do, and I will nest in with the Army as they move forward, as you heard the Chief General McConville and the Secretary of the Army talk earlier. So really from the commanding general down to the newest private that comes here to Fort Hood, it's our Corps, right? And we're all accountable together, and we're going to make a difference. So we're going to lead this change. We're going to show how leaders can achieve irreversible positive momentum. And in closing, the leadership here at 3rd Corps and Fort Hood are fully committed to creating a culture and a climate that our soldiers and the American people are going to be proud of, that's built upon a foundation of trust, dignity, and respect. And we'll address the challenges head on and lead our Army forward. And with that, I've got time for a few questions. And Miles, you orchestrate, please.
We'll start with Randy Cruz.
Randy?
Sir, can you tell me how do we know that operators are
Yeah, so that's a great question. We've got to be able to understand if the changes or the adjustments that we're making are having a positive change and things are actually happening. So we do have a set of generally described metrics. First term or reenlistment, is that going up? Sexual assault, sexual harassment reporting, is that going up? Are our cases closing faster? I mean, there are things that are easily measurable. I think on the other side of how do we know it's working is the buy-in from soldiers and families, just talking to the soldiers and families, and ensuring that what we're trying to deliver is something that, one, they understand, and two, they accept.
General, I've got to say, I can just imagine what the critics of the Army and military in the sexual assault community are saying today. These findings don't seem to be a real surprise. The numbers have been bad for a long, long time. Those surveys that are done, the gender and workplace surveys
Right.
in particular, tell us that. Why did it take this to have everyone get religion about the problem of sexual harassment and sexual assault?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It was asked earlier, both to the committee. And, I think what I'll tell you is I don't have a good answer for you, but what I do know is the things I can do to get after it, the things that are within my authorities, now that I know the details that the independent review committee brought out. And I know that's a squishy answer for you. But, where I am today is, I'm going to move forward with what I know and make positive change. And if I don't, we'll know because we won't see it in our formations. We'll be exactly where we have been. Right.
So we've obviously heard the numbers that were brought up at the committee. They're in the report. I mean, I would imagine you probably know them by heart at this
Yeah.
point. What do you say to the victims who did not have enough confidence in the Army to report crimes like sexual harassment and sexual assault?
Yeah, I've actually gone public a month and a half ago speaking to victims that I don't know because they're not reporting. I've also gone public speaking to victims I do know because they have reported. And in the military, we have a structured hierarchical chain of command that is supposed to be the way you get business done. And when you have a challenge or you have a corrosive like sexual assault or sexual harassment that exists in your formation, you're supposed to go to your chain of command to get that resolved. And when your chain of command gets that challenge, they're supposed to aggressively pursue resolving it. So for those victims that are out there that will not report, the first thing I did was I gave everybody my phone number. It's posted on the billboards. It's on the website. You can call me 24/7 if you don't have confidence in your chain of command, and I'll help you out. I don't want that to last forever, but in order to get after this, maybe that's something that I have to do until we establish for our small unit leaders enough trust and confidence in the lead. Well, they will go to their chain of command. The other thing that I've made abundantly clear to the chain of command here at Fort Hood and across the Corps by speaking to the division commanders at the various locations, the brigade commanders. This morning we had a formation with every battalion command team on this installation at 6 o'clock this morning, so I could tell them, I expect you to be the change agent here. And if you're not, and we don't get positive results, your work will be spoken for. And so I think that's the first thing you've got to do as a leader is step out to establish a connection and let them know, hey, look, if it's not working right now and you don't want to report it, there is somebody you can report to. Call me up. Hey, Alex.
When it comes to the future leadership coming to Fort Hood coming up, do you believe that the criteria for officer and enlisted leaders should change?
I have absolute confidence in the Army and how it produces leaders. It's worked for 240 plus years. It'll continue to work. We always, as the Chief of Staff of the Army mentioned earlier, we always kind of take an inward look at ourselves to see if we need azimuth corrections. And along the way, we do make changes. And so I have confidence in our system and what it produces as leaders. What I'm going to do to help, right, because this is my first time ever serving at Fort Hood in 34 years of military service. So I have young men and women that come here as soldiers and leaders. This is the first time they've ever come here. We've got an academy. I have my Command Sergeant Major standing over here that we're working to centralize. We have a Sharp 360 center that enables leaders to bring small units in and be immersed in vignette face-to-face training, not PowerPoint. We're also creating a People First Academy, which is where we'll bring these new leaders that come to Fort Hood and teach them about the resources that are here. Now, some of that already exists, but I want to centralize it so I have impact when I have a leader sitting or standing in one of these courses or one of these new initiatives that we're rolling out. Andrew?
After looking at this report, it says that the SHARP program is managed poorly, it's underfunded, it's understaffed. Apparently, cases can take up to a year or more based on what they were saying to be resolved, and it essentially did not help prevent sexual assault here at all, according to that report. Do you just wipe that program and start taking over? Do you start from the ground up? Are you going to remove some of the existing leaders of that program and replace them with people that will better manage what is actually happening in each SHARP office? What are you going to do?
I think, Andrew, that it'll be echelon. So the Army, as you heard earlier, is going to take a look at how they can effectively resource the program to do what it's supposed to do. I don't know what the chief or the secretary's direction will be. I do know that here, besides changes to the way we train so that we get the information in a format where soldiers can receive and learn, and the fact that we've opened up lines of communication that didn't exist before, I have enough authorities with the program as it exists today to take some of the actions that the report mentions. So you mentioned speed of compassion is what I call it. You have both a victim and a subject that are involved in something, right? And so using the authorities that exist, both from an investigative perspective, from a legal settlement perspective and adjudication, to put a little more scrutiny into the processes. And I think you're all familiar with the term Sexual Assault Review Board. It's mentioned in the report a couple of times. There are ways we can be better and be more compassionate for both the victim and the subject while we wait to see what wholesale changes may happen across the Army.
You as the commanding general have the ability to replace people in that program or to provide additional funding or to change how that works. Can you do that directly or do you not have the final authority?
We absolutely can fill the required positions. What I'm seeking is what I think everybody would want, which is professionals. So yeah, absolutely, I can make changes. I can take a sergeant first class and I can move them into a sexual assault response coordinator job. I can get them cleared both from a backgrounds check. I can provide them the training. That all takes a little bit of time. So as we maneuver our way through the future, what I've got to determine is where are my resources best used to get after two of the corrosives that we've got here on Fort Hood. And I know that's not really answering what you're getting after.
Move on to the next question. We have Rose there in the front row. General. In reverse. Excuse me. We have Rose there.
Rose.
Hey there. So you mentioned the sexual assault
Right.
report. I've spoken to a number of civilians who work for the SHARP program, and they say that commanders just don't have these meetings even though it's required.
Yeah.
So how are you, there's no accountability for it, and they know that. So how are you going to make commanders know that their jobs depend on actually taking these things seriously
Right.
and doing the things that they're supposed to be doing and just not brushing it off as unimportant?
I mean, that's a great question. So I've conducted personally 2 sexual assault review boards since I returned from Iraq. I came back to work around the 26th of October here, and in November we held one. And at the end of November we held one. I'm going to hold one next week. The requirement is every commander with a major subordinate unit on post attends my SARB. It's a consolidated sexual assault review board, right? So I drill down now on what's going on so they understand that there's command emphasis in this particular area so we can address these corrosives that are out there. And if we're under-resourced, as Andrew was trying to get at, how do we correct that? If we're taking too long on some of these cases, how do we get after that? I mean, it's about protecting the victim, and again, I call it speed of compassion. I mean, we have the resources to get after these cases. And so criminal investigation department sits in on those meetings. Lawyers sit in on those meetings. Commanders are in the meetings. The sexual assault response coordinators are in there. Victim advocates are in there. I've got everybody that deals with the program sitting in that room once a month with me as we review every single open case on this post. So give to January and go back and ask the question again and see if there's been change. Thank you. Adam. Yeah, that's great, because you do need breadth and depth in your investigators. Experience means a lot. I mean, that goes on anywhere. It's not just in CID. Any of our institutions that we have out there that conduct investigatory type stuff. I know that Major General Martin and I have had one conversation, and I know she's taking action. So I think that question actually goes back to her, since she runs and controls CID for the Army. You know, how the agents are trained, who's getting assigned where, and I am positive that she is moving in an absolute correct and right direction. Where we here at Fort Hood can control it is based on the type of case, having the right experienced agent working it, and not just assuming every case is equal. And so that's what we work on as well. You know, I commanded at Fort Bliss, which is of similar size, not quite as many units, and we had about the same, both in agent experience in our agents there. And so, you know, I can't really answer the size, because that really goes back to Criminal Investigation Division's command, and how do we either recruit more, train more, you know, where is her emphasis? So I'd say ask her, and you get a much better answer than you're going to get from me. Last century.
Yeah, it's a little bit, I understand. And being directly over NCOs and squad leaders, we say that, you know, the NCOs are the backbone of the Army. Now, knowing that NCOs have access to, monthly counseling, alert rosters, their accountability formations at 0630, their reports that go up to a hub or above. Do you think it's acceptable for an NCO to say that they don't really know their soldiers, or they haven't gotten the opportunity to know their soldiers?
Yeah, I don't need to answer that question as Lieutenant White or General White. I can answer it for both of them. And the answer is that's absolutely unacceptable. That's why you're a non-commissioned officer and you're in a leadership position. But as a platoon leader, since you want me to go there, at Fort Lewis in 1986, yeah, that is last century, that was quite a while ago, my first platoon sergeant, Jimmy McCants, he was an NCO that upheld Army values first and foremost and trained his subordinates to do the same thing. And so we have given, as a part of People First, 1 day each month to do the things that you're trying to describe here, which is the counseling, right, to be able to train in areas where some of these corrosives exist, to inform our soldiers. So that's on top of the total program. Once a month, every unit is required to do this. You would imagine, as a platoon leader, it was the day you wore your greens into work, and you stood in formation and got inspected. You corrected your deficiencies before you got to go home that night. You received your monthly counseling from your first line supervisor. All that is happening here now at Fort Hood as a part of People First. We've got two subordinate units that will execute next week, so there are some units that haven't gotten to it, but the majority of Fort Hood has executed this 5-day stand-up, which is meant to be positive disruption, to give leaders the tools they need to do what you're describing. Okay. Yeah. Hey, Tanya. Yeah, I don't have a lot of detail, but what I will tell you is I was given sufficient forewarning to put together what I describe as a compassion team, which is a lawyer, a public affairs representative, a behavioral health representative, a chaplain, and a what I would broadly describe as a cyber awareness expert. So that the soldiers that were notified today of whatever level they were notified had something that could catch them coming out to make sure that we're taking care of them as well. There was not a particular effort one way or the other to get me read into specific aspects of what was going to occur, but I had sufficient warning to at least do that, right? And now we'll deal with the aftermath here in the command structure, because there are people that will not be reporting for work tomorrow.
And they did not know this yesterday.
They did not know this yesterday.
And to speak real specifically, each of those people that you said, the cyber experts, these are the people that taught and disciplined the officer?
No. This is like the catcher's mitt. So this is a team that you would provide that could help them emotionally, from a protect perspective. Had nothing to do with the person that was doing the notifications. In person. And we had one senior non-commissioned officer that was notified via phone because he was out of the area.
And you did not?
I did not do these. Hey, Thad. Yeah, that is the question, and so it's a discussion with leaders on what you won't do. But what I do know is I cannot not deliver readiness and lethality for the Army and our nation. That is still a requirement, and so we have an ongoing conversation with the leaders and the commanders here. You're going to do Operation People First, and I'm going to give you a little bit of time to figure out when you're going to do it. But you're going to take these 5 days to get after what I'm directing, which is provide the tools, connect to your soldiers, call moms and dads, right? Work with the Chief of Staff of the Army, General McConville, calls the Golden Triangle. You will do that. In some cases, that means we're not going out the field to train. I need to understand what the risk is, because we have to be able to describe that to our senior leadership, who at some point may have to describe it to Congress, but at this level, there's not that large of an impact. But again, we're going to do this again next year. and it's in the campaign plan. And the reason I mention that is because by next September, we'll have turned over 60% of the formation here. So it's going to be all new soldiers and leaders here. So we're going to do this again until I'm assured that we're on a good path. Does that help? Okay. All right. Well, look, thanks, and I'm sorry I can't take more questions. Miles is always available. Should you need that resource, I'm always available. The Sergeant Major and I are going to go to the Fort Hood Stadium. I think some of you are coming along. We've got to have a discussion with the soldiers now. So I've had a discussion with the leadership here on Fort Hood this morning, and now it's time to talk to their soldiers. And I think that's important so that we build some expectations into, how we're going to move together as a team, because we all are on the same team. So thank you again for coming, and thanks for your support to our Army. As we say in the Army, everybody's a safety officer, right? Everybody can help. This is your Army. And so, continue with the great support and tell the truth and help us see ourselves better, and we'll make corrections along the way. Okay, thanks, everybody.